Hello everyone, it's Aristides here. Today we'll be doing a first impressions look at the Dragonflight Protection Paladin talent tree. Know that this is the first alpha iteration of Paladin talents and we'll probably see changes soon. As we can see right off the bat, it looks like Lay on Hands and Devotion Aura are standard for Paladin tanks. Pretty good stuff here. Blessing of Freedom and Hammer of Wrath are now abilities you need to spend points on. Freedom has historically been a useful ability in all forms of content, so we'll probably see it used often. Spending a point on Hammer of Wrath would also be useful since it's a holy power builder during wings and encounters with low HP enemies. Retribution and Crusader auras are not essential for PvE content, but we can see value in certain niche situations. We may need to spend a point here to reach other important talents later. Depending on the type of content, we'll see a toss-up between the use of Blinding Light and Repentance. Note that Repentance is usable against Dragonkin, so we may see some value there. Mobility can play a huge role in all forms of content. I would see Divine Steed be chosen pretty often. There is good value from the Fist of Justice talent, but I wouldn't see it as necessary. Again, we probably need to take the talent to reach important talents later. The armor increase from Holy Aegis is nice to have defensively, but the 2% extra critical strike rating isn't the best for Prot Paladins. If we continue to be haste mastery heavy, then this talent would probably be in the bottom of the priority list. We also get 2 talent nodes that buff Divine Steed. Cavalier grants another charge, and Seasoned Warhorse increases the duration of Divine Steed by 1 second. Probably choose one or the other here. The Seal of Alacrity talent node is a passive 2% haste increase. I would definitely take this as a Prot Paladin. We see the number of choices take an increase on the second tier. Let's go ahead and take a look. Spending a point on the Golden Path talent will heal up to 5 allies standing in your consecration. It scales off of attack power too. This might see some good value in Mythic Plus and Raid, but I'd have to test this out to see how much healing it'll do. Judgment of Light is also a talent choice you can spend a point on. Looks like it functions the same as the Shadowlands version. This is a powerful ability in Shadowlands Season 3 due to our tier set with Judgment proc bonuses. We'll see how it holds up without it. Avenging Wrath is a no-brainer and we definitely need to spend a point on that. While mounted on your charger or using Crusader Aura, the Seal of the Templar talent node provides extra range on Crusader Strike, Hammer of the Righteous, Hammer of Justice, and your Rebuke ability. Sounds pretty nifty when you're on your horsey, but I don't see it as incredibly valuable for now. Turn Evil has seen some use in Shadowlands, but we'll see how the expansion plays out to see its usefulness. Rebuke, on the other hand, is a must for interrupting enemy casts. I would definitely use a point here. Moving on to the second row of this section, the Seal of Mercy talent buffs the healing of Golden Path. I'd look at what else we have in this row to see its relative value. Both Cleanse Toxins and Blessing of Sacrifice are a vital part of a Paladin's utility kit. I would probably spend a point for each of these. It looks like Judgment does not inherently generate holy power for us. It feels weird that we'd have to spend talent points for it to give us holy power. I personally am not a fan of it. The adjacent Judgment talent used to be a passive, but now requires us to spend a talent point. Depending on how the rest of the talent tree goes, we'll see how this talent compares. The Seal of Reprisal talent is a straight up passive damage increase. I would probably take this. Going into the last row of this section, After Image gives your Word of Glory an AoE effect. Pretty cool if your party needs more AoE healing. The next 2 talent nodes buff Blessing of Sacrifice. Recompense buffs your next Judgment and Word of Glory with some of the damage it diverted from your Blessing of Sacrifice, and Sacrifice of the Just reduces the CD of Sac by 1 minute. Blessing of Protection is a pretty neat tool that can make you immune to certain mechanics. I'd probably spend a point on this. The next talent node forces you to choose between Holy Avenger and Divine Purpose. Historically, we've seen the value of Divine Purpose outweigh Holy Avenger's long cooldown. We'd probably see many Prot Paladins spec into Divine Purpose here. The last talent on this row is Obduracy, a passive 2% speed plus avoidance increase. Might need to spend a point on it to have access to the talents below. Seal of Clarity has a 5% chance to lower the cost of your holy power spender. I probably won't take this talent to reach better talents elsewhere. Aspirations of Divinity provides you with a food buff worth of primary stat for every Crusader strike. It stacks. You would have to venture down pretty heavily into this side of the tree to access this node. I'd like to see if other Prot Paladins place a priority on this. Avenging Wrath gets another talent node which reduces its cooldown by 1 minute. I definitely take this. You are then asked to choose between 2 talents in the next node. Touch of Light is an AoE damage or AoE heal proc. Incandescence, on the other hand, is also an AoE damage proc that deals medium holy damage to an enemy standing in your consecration. I'd like to try these talents in-game to see how potent they are. The Hallowed Ground increases your consecration damage, so I'm probably taking a point into this. The Shadowlands legendary version of this talent has been quite disappointing, so I probably won't be spending a point here. Unbreakable Spirit is a passive that I've used pretty consistently in Shadowlands. I would definitely spend a point on this node. Seal of Might increases your mastery by 12% during Avenging Wrath. This sounds pretty good. I might probably spend another point here. The adjacent node is a choice between the Spell Warding talent or a Blessing of Protection cooldown reduction. I'm pretty sure this could be skipped. The Seal of the Crusader talent has a chance to apply a debuff on your target that causes them to take 15% increased holy damage. The tooltip says that the proc rate is about 3 times per minute. I'd probably take a point into this. Going into the last row, the Seal of Order talent buffs the Of Dusk and Dawn talent by increasing your damage or increasing your armor. I probably won't be spending a point here. The next node asks you to choose between Sanctified Wrath and Seraphim. While Seraphim has seen some great value in Raid and sometimes in Mythic Plus, I wonder if it's a good pick taking Sanctified Wrath for longer wings uptime. Maybe Sanctified Wrath and Mad Paragon might be a good combination. Both talents increase wings uptime and might synergize well with each other. I'd love to test this combination. So I had to do a double take and confirm with literally everyone known to humankind. Dragonflight's version of Avenger Shield does not give holy power anymore. And currently in the first iteration, it does not silence nor interrupt targets, which probably is a bug and will be fixed later. I'm unsure why Blizzard would need to remove Avenger Shield as a holy power generator. Your rotation has you consistently casting Avenger Shield off cooldown. Spending another GCD that does not contribute to holy power spending or holy power building will feel unfun personally. Looking at the second row of the first tier, I am so glad that Blessed Hammer is now separate from Holy Shield. Blessed Hammer has been an ability that I've been missing since BFA, and I'd love to see it come back in full swing in Dragonflight. To me, Blessed Hammer is like the premium version of a 2022 mobile phone. And Hammer of the Righteous feels like, I don't know, a Fisher-Price rotary dial toy phone. The choice for the next talent node might lean more towards Redoubt. The primary stat plus stamina increase from Shield of the Righteous definitely outweighs the block and AoE damage you get from the Shield of the Righteous expiration. I think Redoubt's the better pick here. Holy Shield is a must for Protection Paladins as it adds to our overall tankiness. We've now seen it become meta for 2 seasons, and I would assume it would remain the same for Dragonflight. Grand Crusader has seen its ultimate form back in BFA, where you had a stacking Azerite trait that would empower it. It's still an important part of a Paladin's toolkit, but you reduce its potency when you choose Blessed Hammer over Hammer of the Righteous. Shining Light has now seen a pretty significant buff. You now only require 3 Shield of the Righteous casts instead of 5 for a free Word of Glory. I guess it's needed since Avenger Shield does not grant any more holy power. Consecrated Ground has made a comeback in the talent tree as we see it as one of our choices here. Depending on the type of DPS utility we have in groups, we may or may not see this talent be used in dungeons. Inspiring Vanguard is also making a comeback from BFA, but we'll need to see how our points play out in the talent tree. Now, Ardent Defender is the bread and butter for Prot Paladins. I take a point here 100%. Now we look at Crusader's Judgment. You may see this talent used in raids, but I'm not entirely sure. You increase the potency of Judgment and Light when you use Crusader's Judgment. Consecration of Flame increases the potency of our Consecration ability, which is probably good. I'll definitely spend a point into this. Moving on to the next section, we rarely see Bastion of Light be used. I'm assuming it'll remain the same going into Dragonflight. Bulwark of Order shields you for 8 seconds, absorbing as much damage as it's dealt. Very similar to the current First Avenger talent. I'd probably spend a point into this. Light of the Titans gives our Word of Glory an extra hot that could prove useful. Uther's Guard passively reduces our Lay on Hands, Divine Shield, and Blessing of Protection cooldown. We probably would not need to spend a point into this talent. Going into the next row, Hand of the Protector could provide the extra off-healing a group needs. It also allows access to the talents below it. Resolute Defender is one of the strongest conduits in Shadowlands, and I'm glad it's making a comeback on the talent tree. You'll definitely need to spend a point here. Both Sentinel and Might don't seem appealing personally. This is because we have Divine Toll and Bulwark of the Righteous Fury on opposite ends of the tree. If you want similar strengths in Mythic Plus as in the current iteration of Shadowlands, we'd have to spend enough points to sufficiently diverge towards both paths. Strength of the Conviction looks pretty strong since it empowers our Shield of the Righteous and Word of Glory. Pretty good balance between offense and defense. Relentless Inquisitor increases our haste for every holy power we spend. We should probably take this. Going into the last row, Farron Marcus's strength looks like a solid single target talent, but not so much for AoE. We'd probably take Tyr's Enforcer as its AoE counterpart. Guardian of the Ancient Kings is an important defensive cooldown for a Protection Paladin. I'd 100% take this talent. Sanctuary reduces your damage taken while in Consecration, further increasing our damage reduction if Mastery still works the same way in Shadowlands. Faith Barricade increases our block every time we use Avenger Shield. I'd personally choose Sanctuary over this. Our points are extremely limited by the time we get to this section. Let's look at each talent first and see the comparative values for each node. For AoE, Soaring Shield is better, and for its single target counterpart, Focus Enmity is the best. Faith's armor grants 2% more armor from Shield of the Righteous. This looks pretty awesome. And Faith in the Light grants you additional block chance for every Word of Glory cast. Crusader's Resolve buffs your Avenger Shield, giving 5% reduced damage to you for each enemy hit for 5 seconds. This looks like a good pick for dungeon scenarios. Gift of the Golden Valkyr looks too good to be true on its current iteration. Pretty sure a 500 second cooldown reduction is not intended. The Final Stand talent has its highs and lows for me. For the longest time, it's been buggy in dungeons where nearby DPS and healers receive temporary aggro before the actual taunt. We'll see how this plays out in Dragonflight. Righteous Protector has always been a strong talent choice both offensively and defensively. Would try to put points here. And yes, Divine Toll, the Protection Paladin's ultimate power in Mythic Plus. Would definitely put points into this. Looking at all the talents on the last row, Bulwark of the Righteous Fury and Divine Resonance are my top choices for Mythic Plus. While Eye of the Tier provides extra defense, its uptime is definitely not the best. I still would think the Divine Resonance combined with Bulwark of the Righteous Fury are great picks for damage in dungeon scenarios. Now that we're done looking at the talents, I've also did a mock-up build of what I'd probably choose in a Mythic Plus setting. On the general Paladin side, I'm taking more of a damage approach. I'm combining Sanctified Wrath plus Mad Paragon for longer wings uptime. I also spec'd into Seal of Might for increased mastery during wings, which by the way is one of a paladin's most important stat. I am unfortunately losing the passive healing from Golden Path or Judgment of Light, but I try to make that up with the Light of the Titans talent for extra healing. One last thing I'd like to bring up on this side of the tree is I'm sacrificing Cleanse Toxins. If an encounter, however, requires additional dispels, I'd probably find a way to spec into it. Let's now look on the protection tree. I tried to use the same build as our current Shadowlands build because I feel it's incredibly strong. Both Bulwark of the Righteous Fury and Divine Resonance synergize really well with each other, buffing your Shield of the Righteous significantly. If you notice, I still have one more point I have left to spend. This last point is dependent on what happens on Avenger's Shield on future builds. If Blizzard places their feet down on removing Avenger's Shield as a holy power builder, I would spec into Crusader's Judgment. But if Blizzard changes that notion, I'll probably place my last point into Sentinel for a little bit more survivability. I also decided not to spec into Righteous Protector for now. Speccing into Sanctified Wrath and Mad Paragon actually fulfills the CD reduction Righteous Protector gives you. Let me know what other builds you guys are using for now, as I'd like to see what other people have come up with. Now that we're done looking at the talents, here are my pros and cons thus far. Let's start with the cons first. Some passive talents that were inherently part of an ability now require talent points to have again. More specifically, I'm talking about Judgment. This ability should probably be a natural holy power builder, but spending a talent point to make it so just feels like a low blow. Continuing on this note though, I still don't fully agree with Avenger's Shield's nerf. Your rotation as a Prot Paladin or even a Paladin in general should be a constant stream of holy power building and spending. Taking away from this natural flow will make Prot Paladin feel clunky. As for the pros, the specialization side of the talent tree has so many cool talents to choose from that actually aren't bland. You're constantly making sacrifices to damage or survivability when spending your points. Having less useless talents and more viable options to pick from feels like an RPG again. Things are definitely looking up. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I see you again on my next video. Peace.